I'm going to talk about my beliefs, my worldview. I've had the idea for this video for a very long time. Probably since around the time that I started making videos last year. For some reason I'd held off on making this video, but I feel that the time is right to discuss these things. Now, myself, I believe in reincarnation, as our ancient pagan ancestors did. Now, we are all entitled to our own beliefs, and I know many of my own race are either Christian or atheist, but this belief system works for me. I'm not saying that mine are superior to yours, but they work for me. And I will explain why this worldview works for me. Now, I'm not here to rail against Christianity or whatever, because, as I said, we're all entitled to our own beliefs. And I have family that is Christian, and I still love them, no matter what. And I was raised Christian, honestly. I was raised Presbyterian, and I will get into that further. But this worldview that I found a few years ago, it seems to make sense to me. I guess you could say it's spiritually fulfilling, and I will explain why. You see, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that we have been here before, and that we will be here once again. The ride never ends. I believe that our souls come back. And some people will say that, I've heard many people argue that they see paganism as it's just atheism cloaked. It's just disguised atheism, and I think this is completely wrong. Because I believe we have souls, spirits. I believe each person does. And I believe that we go on to something. In my case, I believe that we will come back as our descendants. You see, we are the sum of our ancestors. You look at it, we have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and so on and so forth, all the way back. Now, our worldview is very old. It's very ancient. It stretches back all the way, at least 70,000 years, back to our ancient Neanderthal forebears. And there is evidence of this. Archaeologists have found evidence. And you know, over time, over the centuries and millennia, our worldview has changed somewhat, but the core elements are still the same. You see, they have found archaeological evidence in Europe of Neanderthals that they had found burial sites in caves. And these are from 70,000 years ago, they estimate. And in the burial cave, they had found skeletons of Neanderthals. And these skeletons are laid out, and they're arranged. There was obviously some ceremony for their burial. And it is noticed that these skeletons, a lot of them were missing their skull and one of their thigh bones. And this is a reincarnation ritual that extended for thousands of years. It extended on up, I would assume, into the early Middle Ages a lot of times. Instead of caves, our European ancestors used burial mounds. Now, the reason a 7-year-old kid, the initiate, would enter the cave or the burial mound, and they would reclaim the skull and the thigh bone of their ancestor, because this was to help them remember, to help them find who they are. Nature is cyclical. You see, the sun, it will rise in the east in the morning and it will set in the west. The moon, it waxes and it wanes over a month, and it also rises and sets. Nature is cyclical, and I believe our souls, our spirits, aren't any different. And so this video here, it will also be cyclical. Now, as I said, I was raised Christian. I went to church as a kid, but my family, we weren't all that religious really. And as I also said, I'm not really here to rail against anyone's religion. But for myself, it always seemed like I found that from a young age, it seemed like there was contradictions in Christianity. It seems like you see that the God of the Old Testament seems to advocate for things such as the Israelites going down into a valley and killing every man, woman, and child to get their promised land. But the God in the New Testament seems to advocate turning the other cheek and praying for your enemies. It's a lot of conflict, and I think in some ways in my life that it has led to a lot of internal conflict. I was never what I would call a very good Christian, to be honest. As I said, it led to a lot of conflict. This worldview of incarnation, it seems to have helped me found myself. I used to have a very complicated life years back, and nowadays, and I think a big part of it is my worldview. Nowadays, my life is a lot more simple. It's not complicated anymore. Now, there's one thing that I seem to see that some of those in our circle try to do. And one thing that they try to do is that they try to claim that the only reason that our race is great is because Christianity itself. Now let me straighten this out. We were great. Our race was great long before Christianity or any form of Abrahamism ever crept into Europe. This train of thought, I see it as erroneous, and it is disrespectful to our distant ancestors. We were great long before we ever had any form of Abrahamism creep into Europe. Now, you may ask, how can I be reincarnated if I don't have any children myself, any direct descendants? And this is a good question, you know. The way I see it, though, if you attempt and try to live an honorable life, there is a good chance that you will be reincarnated, that your soul will be reborn, not by one of your direct descendants. You know, I think we all should try to have children because they're the greatest joys in life. And But unfortunately, some of us will be fated not to procreate and to not have children. But this is no reason not to live an honorable life. Just think about it. I'm sure you have cousins or distant cousins, and I'm sure that they probably have had children. And the way I see it, as long as our race survives, then we will be reincarnated. I don't have any children yet, but I plan on doing that soon. My younger brother, he just had a daughter. And even if I was to fail, for whatever reason, to have children, I could take comfort in knowing that part of my soul will go on through her descendants. Now, I apologize for all the background noise. It seems that I can't get far enough away from civilization sometimes. But our myths, our tales, our gods, what were they, you may ask? Were they fantastic beings that were given fantastic and nonsensical attributes? No. Our worldview, in our worldview, the myths, the tales, they were riddles in a sense. They were tales that the initiate was supposed to learn and be able to recite and interpret. And this was lost during the Middle Ages when Christianity took over Europe. By and far it was lost, this knowledge. Now, it was kept alive in certain remote parts of Europe, perhaps in Scandinavia, the far north, in the Baltic regions, which were amongst the last to be Christianized. In these remote places, our traditions and worldview was kept alive, I believe. So, the gods, they represent forces of nature. They also represent our ancestors, and they also represent us. The gods are us, and we are them, just as we are our ancestors, and they are us. Now, the only worldview that I find myself completely unable to understand any aspect of it is atheism. I don't believe that we are just here, and that's it. That's completely nonsensical to me. Now, as far as Abrahamism goes, I can understand, I suppose, that their wish to go to heaven and be reunited with lost loved ones. I wish this as well. But who is to say? Who's to say that in our worldview, that in a future life we will not see these lost loved ones? After all, we are our ancestors and they are us. Who's to say that perhaps in a future life I will not meet my grandparents, my great-grandparents once again? I look forward to that, and it gives me comfort. Now, this is more like it. A little further away from the dull roar of civilization. So, where were we? Yes. The way I see it, this worldview, as I said, it works for me. It is European polytheism, paganism. There's several different names for it. And I'm glad that I found the books that Varg and Vegard Solheim, Stefan Cvetkovic had written. Because as I said, it makes sense to me. And I certainly believe that they are onto something. And I believe they are right about our history and our worldview. Now, as I said, my life is a lot more simpler now. It's better, to be honest. My life isn't complicated. I'm not how I used to be, and I'm very grateful for that. You know, as I said, the belief in reincarnation, it gives me comfort. As I mentioned, who is to say that we don't see our lost loved ones in the next life? I believe we do. Perhaps my descendants, perhaps if I have grandchildren, if I live long enough, perhaps if I have great-grandchildren, perhaps I will see my grandparents or great-grandparents, perhaps I will see them in my descendants. It's a comforting thought to me. Now this video is already long enough already. I could keep talking, but I think that I have said enough for now. As I said, this is my worldview. I find comfort in it. I find peace, serenity. You know, nature is a cycle. You see, there's a time to love, there's a time to hate, a time to create, and a time to destroy. Nature is cyclical, and so is this video. As you can see, I'm right here. I'm right back here where I started. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.